Welcome, Magic fans, to another Pops Culture Deck Tech. I'm Dr. Magic. Today I have a budget standard deck. If you have not been playing standard recently, you're missing out. As a matter of fact, it's become a lot of fun. It's probably my favorite standard since Theros. Lots of different varieties and lots of neat card interactions and lots of cool things that you can do. Not just the 4 and 5 color decks anymore. Lots of great synergies and some cool things that were supported. Not so great with Battle for Zendikar, but that got the boost that they need with Oath of the Gatewatch. This kind of happens to be one of them. It's a takeoff on a red-green Landfall deck that saw some play early in Zendikar Standard. It quickly fell out of favor. That's not here nor there, just some better options. But we're looking at doing some things that are kind of budgetary. Those should allow you to play your FNMs, play your game days, still have fun playing, and not break the bank. Most of this deck, in fact all of this deck, I don't think will rotate post Shadows over Innistrad, which is coming up early in April. So it's a great fun deck to play around with, and takes advantage of one of my favorite mechanics, Landfall, because you can't counter a land drop, so you get your triggers, and not much anybody can do about it. The other thing is, it's a great deck to play at like Pops, where we do for our FNMs what we call Pack Attack, and that is it's a $6 entry. Each round that you play in and win, you get a pack. So this is the type of deck that you could conceivably go 2 and 2, 3 and 1 with the right matchups. Your deck's going to run you less than $20 to build. You pay $6 an entry, you get a couple of packs. All in all, cheaper than a movie and a whole heck of a lot more fun. So this is, like I said, it's a real budget deck. We build it without any fetch lands. There's a couple of things in Oath that I felt enabled the strategy so that you could get around it. Obviously, you know, the fetch lands themselves run about $20 a piece, so we could run 60 cards and have an under $20 budget deck, or we could run 1 card, and that didn't work out so well. So we went this route. The other thing to note is you can, if you do have the fetch lands, if you do have some of the other kind of pieces to this that are a little more expensive, you can go ahead and stick those right in. My assumption here is we're starting with 0, so if you do have things like Cinderglades and you know, the fetch lands, those would obviously fit in here, but I think it's playable as it sits, and I'm going to show you the deck, I'm going to show you some interactions, and give you a little bit of strategy here, and hopefully you'll be able to find this or one of the other budget decks that we're just getting ready to put up on our blog that suits you. So if you haven't been playing Standard for a while, you feel like you can come back in and enjoy. So without further ado, here we go. $20 red-green Landfall. So obviously the creature base is going to have Landfall. There are 21 creatures, 19 of which have the Landfall ability, starting with Scythe Leopard, then Snapping Gnarlid and Makindi Slide Runners at the 2-drop, Valakut Predator at 3, and then we have 3 Grove Rumblers and Mina and Den at the 4-drops. Not much to say on those other than they get the Landfall triggers. They curve out nicely. Scythe Leopard on 1, Snapping Gnarlid or Slide Runner on 2, Predator on 3, Grove Rumbler on 4. Nice thing about that is each one of those landfalls gives you multiple triggers. So your Scythe Leopard on turn 1 is a 1/1. On turn 2, you're going to play the land for the Snapping Gnarlid. You're now swinging with the Scythe Leopard, that's a 2/2. Turn 3, going to play the Predator. So you have to play the land, Scythe Leopard, Snapping Gnarlid, both get 1/1 triggers. So now it's a 2/3 and a 3/2 attacking on turn 3, and it just goes from there. 2 of the creatures have trample with them. The Slide Runner and Grove Rumbler both come with it. We've got some other things in here that will allow you to give your creatures trample. Not a lot of evasion, not a lot of removal. Basically, we're just trying to battering ram our way through. And Mina and Den are in here for that purpose, along with the additional land trigger that you can play. So You can actually play one land 2 times in a turn with them by playing the land, tapping a red and a green using their ability, giving something that maybe doesn't have trample, returning that land to your hand, play it again. So that's double landfall triggers plus trample. So you should be able to kind of get some damage through pretty much whenever you want. Instant speed, so you can bounce the land back to your hand, during combat, just to give something else trample that happened to go unblocked or got chumped. So creature base, really simple, really self-explanatory. 1s, 2s, 3s, and 4 drops that have landfall. We're going to talk about the spells now. Those are where I think we can enable the deck a little bit without the fetch lands. So let's go ahead and look at those. Alright, now we're going to look at the spells that make up red-green landfall. There are 15 spells. All of them are enablers that support our landfall theme. Okay, so the first one we have is Seek the Wilds. Seek the Wilds is a double duty card for us. Top 4 cards reveal creature or land. So if you've got your board state set and you're just looking for that land to make sure that you can trigger that landfall, Seek the Wilds will help you get it. Also, if you happen to have a bunch of lands in your hand and need some more threats, Seek the Wilds will help you get whatever piece you need. So great enabler for us, and helps us find exactly what we need. Retreat to Valakut. Retreat to Valakut, nice synergy with the deck. Obviously landfall, we're going to have a lot of those landfall triggers. If we're swinging through or have something with trample, we can landfall and give a creature +2/+0. Again, we're not really an evasive type of a deck, not a lot of removal, so really what we're trying to do is just battering ram through, and that helps. But if there does happen to be something that you want to go around, that one land drop can remove a creature from battle, making it not able to block, so your whole team can swing through. So Retreat to Valakut, thought was a real good kind of support card for this, used in whichever way works best. And you can have multiples too. It's not a legendary enchantment, so if you have 2 retreats, 1 landfall trigger would get you +4/+0, or 2 creatures that can't block, or some synergy thereof. Pulse of Marasa was one of the cards from Oath that kind of helps to support the deck. Return target creature or land from a graveyard to owner's hand. So going to support our synergy either way. If a creature gets killed off, we need it back, or if we need to go get a land, that's going to help. Also, gaining 6 life in those really aggressive matchups, because we have some low curve stuff. We really kind of hit our sweet spot at 2 headed into 3, but gaining 6 life can really stabilize and kind of takes the sting out of being all out aggressive. Knowing that gaining 6 life, the backswing has less of a chance of killing you, so you can feel free to swing with your creatures rather than leave any back on defense, knowing that you'll be able to get that life back. Natural Connection is just a straight enabler. Search your library for a basic land card, put it on the battlefield tapped. Again, at instant speed, so you can do that in response to blocks being declared. If you retreat to something like Retreat to Valakut out, you swing in, they declare blocks, you Natural Connection, put that land out on the battlefield, trigger your landfall, trigger Retreat to Valakut, and give something +2/+0 that really hit hard. Slab Hammer. Slab Hammers, it kind of works with this in that it makes sure that you always have a land to return to your hand, to play by returning one to your hand. So it's kind of backwards in that you obviously can't play another land during combat, so you'd have to play your land drop, which would trigger your landfall, swing in, return the land to your hand, buff your creature, but then you have your land to make sure that you can play it again next turn. So Slab Hammer, a nice synergy. And then Devour in Flames, another card from Oath that helped to really synergize with the deck, make it not so dependent on the fetch lands. 5 damage to target creature or planeswalker, which is of course relevant in an area where we have Gideons running around, and Ob Nixilis and those kinds of things. Devour in Flames, return a land to your hand, 5 damage, play that land again, and trigger your landfall all over again. So just nice synergy there. Things that help you get lands or creatures, things that help you get lands or creatures back, and then things that make the use of your landfall by aiding your creatures in some way, and then 2 spells, that being Slab Hammer and Devour in Flames, that help make sure you always have a land in your hand so that you're always getting the effect of that landfall trigger. And speaking of lands, the last part we're going to look at in the deck is the land base. Here we see the land base for Red-Green Landfall. There are 24 lands, which sounds like a lot for an aggro deck that curves out at 4, but we don't want to ever risk missing a land drop because it's so important to our strategy. So we do have a little bit of, we're a little heavy in the lands. That being said, we also have creatures and spells and artifacts that will allow us to return those lands to our hand so we can play them again and get that landfall trigger, because it's really the most important part of the deck, is making sure that we can trigger that each and every turn, and hopefully multiples if we want. So there are 11 forests and there are 7 mountains. A little heavier on the forest than we are on the mountains, simply because our curve starts earlier with green, with the Scythe Leopard, and then Seek the Wilds if we need to go find a mountain or a creature. We need that green for that. So we wanted to make sure that we were a little skewed towards green, and we can pick up the red, on turn 2, turn 3, so that we can make sure that we can cast our red spells, which are really kind of at the 3-drop, 3 CMC spot. And so that seems like a good kind of cut. If you are adding fetch lands, this is kind of where you want to cut them at a 1-for-1. Those fetch lands do run about $20 a piece. You can run in the deck up to 12 of them. You can run 4 Windswept Heaths, 4 Wooded Foothills, and 4 Bloodstained Mires. So you can add another 12 lands that will fetch things out. But those all run about $20 a piece. So unless you want to spend in excess of $200 on just those land bases, this will get the job done with those enablers that we talked about in the spell section. For a budget deck, this should work out just fine. We obviously have 4 Evolving Wilds, best card in Magic, in my opinion. Evolving Wilds allows you to get double landfall triggers in a turn. Playing the Evolving Wilds triggers your landfall. Fetching with the Evolving Wilds triggers the landfall again. So, a strategy there is, you can play an Evolving Wilds and crack it to go get another land to trigger double landfall, or you can play the Evolving Wilds, get your landfall trigger, save it up till maybe the next turn or turn after, when you're going to be a player basic land, crack the Evolving Wilds, go get another one. And use it strategically like that. You can also use it at instant speed, so you can use it on your opponent's turn. So if they're trying to do something like Boiling Earth, which to kill all your 1-drop or your 1 toughness creatures, you can fetch with Evolving Wilds in response, trigger that landfall, and your creatures will survive. Blighted Woodlands is just kind of an Evolving Wilds on steroids a little bit if you want to. Does tap for colorless mana. You do have to sacrifice it, so you do have some pay for it, but gets you 2 lands. So if you play a Blighted Woodland and have the mana to activate it, you get the Blighted Woodland trigger, and then you get the trigger from the other 2 that come in. So that's one of those things that can really deliver a knockout punch, especially if you're swinging with 3 or 4 different creatures. That's really it, folks. Nothing too complicated. Then stick lands, jam creatures, swing a lot. A very aggressive deck that you want to just continually pound threats, continually lay lands, and once you have your creature base, you just want to continue to lay those lands and make sure that you are triggering that landfall trigger, as many times as you can. That's it for our $20 Red-Green Landfall deck. This has been Dr. Magic. Hopefully you have enjoyed this deck tech. Look for more deck techs on our YouTube channel. check out our blog. New content from our Magic folks every Friday. Dr. Magic, thank you for stopping by. Can't wait to see you across the table at an F&M. Thanks.